Warning! This video contains language and subject material that may be absolutely, definitely, probably inappropriate for children. Marvelous hello, friends and loved ones, and welcome back to Saintstember. This is actually a pretty special one. This is actually the last numbered entry in the Saintstember series, because I'm taking a look at Saints Row 4. Because like I said last year, that's how numbers work. Saints Row 4 came out in 2013, and I originally played it on the Xbox 360 back then. But much like when I covered Saints Row the 3rd last year, I decided to pick up the Super Deluxe Re-Elected pack for the PS4, which looks a bit nicer and includes all of the DLC. Like, have you ever wanted Ashley Birch of Persona Q fame as a homie? Well, there you go. And it also means Return of the Purpley! Woo! Purpley! In many of my previous Saintstember videos, I mentioned how the series slowly progressed from street-level gang story to the President of the United States fighting aliens with superpowers. Well, that point is finally here with Saints Row 4. Although before we really get started, I do feel like I need to address the elephant in the room. On August 31st of this year, just one day before Saintstember began, Volition was shut down by their parent company. So, unless something changes, there won't be any more Saints Row games from here onward. Volition put out a statement thanking their fans, and I wish every former team member all the best. Thank you, Volition, for all of the great memories. Most of which were from Saints Row 2. I'm not gonna lie to you. Pouring one out for the homies. Why did I do that? I have carpet in here. The game actually opens up with what feels like it'd be the last mission of a normal game. Cyrus, the disgraced former leader of Stag from Saints Row 3, arms a nuke and plans to blow up America with it. Fortunately, the Saints team up with MI6 agent Asha Odekar and former leader of the Deckers, Matt Miller, to stop him. Playa is willing to sacrifice themselves to try and disarm the nuke while it's in the air, and winds up crashing right into the desk at the Oval Office. Which, I guess makes about as much sense as how we picked the real president in this country. So, naturally, 5 years later, you're now President Playa, with many of the Saints having cabinet positions, and Vice President actor Keith David, whose voice sounds very similar to former Saints leader Julius Little. Of course, your presidency is cut short when a wide-scale alien invasion occurs, and President Playa gets their butt kicked by Zinyak, Emperor of the Zin Empire. That's right, he's an Invader Zin. Playa wakes up from all that alien invasion nightmare stuff to an idyllic, wholesome neighborhood where everybody is happy and there's no crime or violence or cuss words like diaper biscuits. I'd actually have loved it if the entire game took place in this cartoonishly 50s town, but no, this is just a simulation of President Playa's personal hell. And when they disrupt the peace, Zinyak instead just drops them into a simulation of recreated Steelport from the last game. Except it's always night and there's Zin propaganda littered around. For those of you that have been keeping track of my Playa's progression through this series, we started at comfy hoodies, then we had a business casual leader, then we had a crazy supervillain, and now, I don't know why, I just love the thought of having a big fat president with a top hat, monocle, tiny mustache, and as always, a face full of piercings. Honestly, I think Saints Row 4 has some of the weakest character creation options. I can't even wear the bunny slippers I had on in the previous two games. Unless I can, and I just couldn't find them. That is very possible, I might just be stupid. But hey, at least I can still drive around the city on my beloved
motorcycles.
Until I no longer need to, because thanks to Kinsey's hacker magic, it's not long until we get superpowers like super speed and power jumping. The smart thing about this game's city being a simulation is that whenever things go wrong in the game, we can just pretend that the simulation is broken. Like how President Playa can't wear their comically tall top hat inside the car. Or why they sometimes have their face full of piercings when they're out of the simulation, but sometimes they don't. Shh. Don't question why stuff that happens out of the simulation would be a fault of the simulation. That's just the simulation talking. Rather than taking down 3 rival gangs or 1 criminal syndicate made up of 3 different gangs like in previous titles, your main objective this time is just defeating Zinyak. While we already had a perfectly good reason to want to do this, Zinyak decides to give us even more incentive by blowing up Earth. The only game I can think of where the villain actually succeeds in destroying Earth faster than this is Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. In order for Kinsey to find out where Zinyak is, Playa needs to go back into the simulation and cause enough trouble to weaken it. And you can do that by hacking stores, completing side activities, or destroying targets. Or, just playing through the main story. Honestly, because you only have the one primary objective, the main plot of Saints Row 4 is pretty short. Once Playa gets free reign between being in the simulation and being on the spaceship where you can romance members of your crew a la Mass Effect.
Hey Kinsey, you wanna fuck?
Let's go.
A large chunk of the game just involves rescuing and recruiting people who can help you. See, Earth may have been destroyed, but Zinyak captured and trapped humans that he considered valuable and worth holding onto for their strength, intelligence, or other various factors. Unfortunately, this doesn't include Oleg from Saints Row 3, so he's dead. I guess now we know who won that chess game he and Pierce had going on. Similar to how Playa was trapped in a wholesome suburb, all of the other characters you rescue are trapped in their own personalized hells, which make these missions pretty fun and varied, honestly. The first character you rescue is actually Matt Miller, who is trapped in a cheesy old text adventure game where he has to fight Killbane. But before we rescue him, Zinyak decided to give us a choice to sacrifice ourselves to save all of humanity.
How many have died because you decided that driving on the sidewalk is faster than the road? Because you used a rocket in place of a bullet?
Oh yeah? Well, that's actually a pretty decent point. Huh.
Shandi's hell is mostly a recreation of her having to relive Johnny Gat's death from Saints Row 3 and feeling helpless. Remember how Shandi totally sucked in Saints Row 3? Yeah, well, the developers really want us to think that new Shandi is better by literally having her yelling about how much of a loser Saints Row 2 Shandi was.
I used to be useless. What? The most memorable thing you ever did was get captured by your smoked out ex.
Oh, you really want to play that game, new Shandi? Fun Shandi, yes that is what the game calls her, had a massive intel network throughout Stillwater and hacked police security cameras to help take down the Sons of Samdi. Tell me again what you did in Saints Row 3? Oh, that's right, you got kidnapped. Off screen, I might add. Pierce's mission is honestly one of the best. As the face of the Saints brand, he fears that what he loves may one day try to kill him. And that fear takes the form of a kaiju-sized can of Saints Flow named Paul. And we get to take Paul down with rockets and eventually a giant monster brawl from inside a controlled statue. It's pretty great. The only problem though is Saints Flow probably has a lot of sugar in it. But did you know that you can actually get delicious sugar-free energy drinks from Dubby? Dubby Energy offers powdered energy drinks that help hydrate and invigorate you without the eventual sugar crash of most canned options. I want to be clear, they are not directly sponsoring this video, but I am happy to say that I've recently partnered with Dubby and you can all get 10% off any online order by using the promo code STRAIN at checkout. I recommend the Dub Sludge flavor, which tastes great in my Saints Purple colored anime shaker. If you want to help support the channel and get yourself some awesome energy drink goodness, consider trying Dubby today, and remember to use the promo code STRAIN to get 10% off your order. I've included a reference link in the description of this video. Thank you so much. Now, one of my biggest complaints with Saints Row 3 was that it had a very inconsistent balance between genuine character moments and utter absurdity. Saints Row 4 managed to fix that by actually going even harder on the wackiness, which truthfully helped create more memorable character moments. Sure, they didn't necessarily carry the gripping narrative weight of what I loved in Saints Row 2, but I still generally found them to be enjoyable in a distinct way. Even though I only replayed Saints Row 3 about a year ago, I struggle to remember any specific Pierce moments. But I will never forget Pierce and Playa's outrage that their car karaoke duet of Biz Marquis's Just a Friend gets hijacked by the alien overlord that they're trying to stop.
You got what I need, and you say he's just a friend, and you say he's just a friend. Hell no! Signac ruined Biz Marquis. Man, I can't wait to kill that bitch.
I love it. Ben King's mission has us briefly revisiting Stillwater and fighting off waves of Vice Kings as Ben relives when Tanya turned his entire gang against him in the first game. It's both kinda nice and kinda weird to see these characters that we haven't seen since Saints Row 1, especially since neither of them are voiced by their original actors. Saints Row 4 came out in 2013, so I assume Mila Kunis was probably busy filming Ted, and Michael Clark Duncan was busy being already dead by then. Rest in peace, King. Then there's Asha's mission, which is basically a lengthy reference to Metal Gear Solid where you help her defeat your evil twin. I actually had to reload this mission because at a certain point when Asha was supposed to unlock a door for me, she apparently glitched out of reality, so I couldn't make any progress. But like I said, that's not a game problem. That's just a problem with the simulation, right? Speaking of Asha, I do want to talk about her real quick. I don't really mind her as a character, but as one of the only new members of the Saints in this game, we just didn't get as much time to spend with her as we have other characters, and they don't really give her that much to do in this game either. Honestly, I think the best line to sum up my feelings toward Asha is delivered by Asha.
Well, we just met, but, you seem, nice.
Speaking of new members of the Saints, I guess I should also mention Sid. He's like an alien AI that we put into a robot ball. He kinda sucks, honestly. I don't like him. I think they were trying to parody Portal or something, but I'm not a fan. I don't like this character. He's annoying. But after you rescue all the other characters, it's time for the big enchilada. We're gonna rescue Johnny Gat. See, while we all thought he was dead in Saints Row 3, what actually happened is that years before his invasion of Earth, Zinyak appeared on Philippe Laurent's airplane at the exact moment we all thought Johnny died. So Johnny wasn't dead at all, see? He was just in Zinyak's simulation for several years before the official invasion, see? Which makes perfect sense and isn't at all nutty so long as you're willing to ignore that Zombie Johnny was a character in Saints Row 3. I blame the simulation. By the way, Johnny's mission is basically a full 3-stage retro beat-em-up game called Saints of Rage. It's pretty fun, and I like how they actually make a pixelated version of your personal Playa. It's definitely better than Asha's mission completely changing your design. But after you rescue everybody, including Johnny Gat, Vice President Keith David betrays you because Zinyak told him that he could restore Earth and all of humanity if Playa dies. So we chase Keith David into the simulation and team up with Roddy Piper for the sole purpose of the game doing an extended reference to They Live that goes on just a bit past the point where it stops being funny. And then we make up with Keith David. Honestly, I think they just wanted to stretch out the gameplay of the main plot for a little bit longer, which is why there's an entire mission that's just talking to Matt Miller where he says they're stretching out the gameplay. But you do eventually help Kinsey make a key that she can use to destroy the simulation and track down Zinyak. But before I get to the game's finale, let's talk about some of that side content. I briefly mentioned earlier that you get super speed and power jumps as superpowers, which honestly do make traversing the city pretty fun, even if you are going to spend a lot of time looking at your player's grundle as they glide through the air, because many missions and objectives decide to space themselves out as far as humanly possible. You do unlock a few other powers by fighting these alien wardens that replace the Oleg clones from Saints Row 3, like an elemental blast, telekinesis, a power stomp, and a buff move that I literally never used once outside of the tutorial and truthfully forgot I had it most of the time. Honestly, I never found the superpowers that fun to use in battle. I generally had more fun just blasting away at enemies with my weapons. Earlier, I mentioned that the character customization in Saints Row 4 was a little weak, but I genuinely loved the weapon customization. You could go to friendly fire and change the physical appearance of a lot of your guns. so I was able to turn my automatic shotgun into Lil Stinger, which is all bee-themed. Yes, I'm still mad that we couldn't keep the gun that shoots bees in Saints Row 3. You can still buy general upgrades to your character by earning levels and money, but if you want to power up your powers, then you need to collect these data fragments spread throughout the city, and holy crap, these things are everywhere. There is a level of satisfaction in super jumping from roof to collect them while you're aiming the camera down to line up your landing. It's like playing Jumping Flash, except you're not a robot bunny. Then there are the activities, and honestly, these are kind of a mixed bag for me. A few of the classics are back, like insurance fraud, which I actually think is more fun than ever in this game because of how it incorporates your superpower into the ragdoll physics. Like, this was genuinely fun. Blazin' is pretty good because it's now essentially a time trial, fast-paced parkour activity, and Mayhem makes a comeback, which has always been one of my favorites. But then there's also Tank Mayhem, UFO Mayhem, Mech Suit Mayhem, Telekinetic Mayhem, Power Stomp Mayhem, and honestly, I just don't find any of these numerous variations to be as fun as just having a rocket launcher. And sure, some of my personal favorite activities like drug trafficking and snatch are gone because superpowers make cars essentially meaningless in this game, but hey, at least there's jumping, the activity. I also don't really like what they did with Hitman missions. You used to have to go to specific locations and perform a unique action to try and lure your target out. Now you just pick up the mission, go where it tells you to go, and they just pop up for you to kill them. It's not as fun. I mentioned in last year's video that something I didn't like about Saints Row 3 was how most activities just ended up being story missions that you do for members of the Saints, and you don't get those character cutscenes from 1 and 2 that provided context for why you were doing these things and introducing us to a fun new character. That's still mostly true with 4, but I do think this game handled it a little better. For one, now most of these activities are side quests that you do for members of the Saints instead of trying to wedge them into the main plot. The context is basically that doing this will damage the simulation, and as much as I do love those character cutscenes, Earth did get blown up, so the only real humans left to talk to are the, 10 of you that are on the ship. The most important side quests to do before you tackle the final mission are the loyalty missions, which serve to provide some one-on-one interactions with Playa and the other characters and unlock their own superpowered versions of themselves. Most of these are actually really fun, and the costumed versions of the characters look pretty cool. The game even warns you to do these side quests before the final mission if you want the true ending, so I don't really understand why they didn't just make them part of the plot. Like I said, the main story is already pretty short. They could have just made these mandatory. Alright, I'm gonna spoil the ending of Saints Row 4 now, so skip ahead to this time if you don't want to hear how this all goes down. Okay, Playa helps Sid insert Kinsey's key and opens up some portals to disrupt and shut down the simulation, which by the way also brings back Paul for a bit. He doesn't do anything, but they did put Paul on the cover, so I guess they needed him to show up at least one more time. And now we can take the fight to Zinyak himself and... hey, it has been a while since I covered a game where the final boss was a giant robot.
It's power armor.
Same thing. Not really. A robot is an automaton, whereas power... Don't ruin this, Keith.
We rip off Zinyak's head, and Playa goes from being President of America to President of a universe-conquering alien race. Then there's a lengthy dance party sequence like this is the ending of an early 2000s animated kids movie. It only lasts for 2 minutes or so, but trust me, it felt longer than that. Now, just like with Saints Row 3, because I'm playing the Special Edition with all the extra bits, we have a few DLC stories to go through. The first of which is Enter the Dominatrix, which they frame as a pretty amusing interview segment where the cast of the Saints go over how the story would have unfolded after Saints Row 3. In this version, Zinyak gets defeated early on, and the simulation is taken over by a dominatrix, and we get to see a few old faces, like Donnie from Saints Row 1 and 2 joining the Saints, and Zemos from 3 helps us out in a BDSM chariot race. The interview segments and commentaries are honestly what give this mission pack a lot of its charm, with several of the cutscenes being shown as the storyboarded segments or live-action concept ideas. Then there's the over-the-top ending, which gave me a huge laugh. The cast says that it was deemed too crazy for Saints Row, and it ends with Playa riding a raptor that sings Walk the Dinosaur, and the Saints team up with the raptors on their alien homeworld. Shadia becomes the Raptor Queen, and Playa invites the Raptor King to go bowling.
See, that's where it became too crazy for Saints Row. I mean, a raptor playing bowling? Ridiculous.
Then there's also How the Saints Save Christmas, and honestly, I loved this pack. Like, it's short, and it's simple, and it's about Playa learning the true meaning of Christmas by helping defeat an evil Santa. It is just over-the-top holiday goofery, and really all I can say, I was just grinning from ear to ear while playing this one. Honestly, I could do an entire video just talking about this DLC pack. But it's not Saintstember, that would be ridiculous. It's Saintstember. Now, I have to say, before replaying it for this video, Saints Row 4 was a game I'd only played through once back when it first came out. And back then, I remember thinking it wasn't as good as Saints Row the 3rd. But having replayed it, I think I actually do like this a little better. The dedication to its ridiculousness made it a lot more enjoyable and memorable. And while the activities were hit or miss, I felt that the highs did a better job of balancing out the lows than anything 3 pulled off. By this point, it's pretty clear they had no intention of ever going back to what made Saints Row 2 so great, but I still enjoyed what was on offer here, and it made for a good time.
Alright, and that is the 4th Saintstember over and done with. I had a pretty good time with this one, but weirdly enough, I can't help but feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh, yeah. See you next time.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, be sure to click like, but if you really liked it, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. Extra special thanks to all my friends and loved ones over on Patreon, which you can pledge to today to see your own name in these ending credits. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, take care.